women. One is Molly McKenna, who is the Director of Operations at Pure Realty in Cedar Park, Texas, which is a city right outside of Austin, Texas. And her colleague, Rebekah Cummings, who is an agent within the Pure Realty team. And she's the founder of the Cummings team with her husband at Pure Realty. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yay, our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Great. And also we have Lisa Fettner, who is on the Proppy side and has a vast marketing experience and is helping Proppy with many different things coming up over 2021. So Lisa, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. I think that maybe we can do a really quick intro. Rebekah, would you like to start? Just say hello to everybody and give a quick intro about yourself. What I'm interested in understanding is how you got into real estate, why are you passionate about it, and why are you doing what you're doing?
Okay, got into real estate. It was actually my husband Paul's idea. We were both working completely opposite ends of jobs. I was in the retail industry and he was in the bar management industry. Managed nightclubs for 20 plus years. And he was just like, we should go into real estate. And I said, why? Once we got into it, we got licensed. It only took meeting my very first client at an open house. I love open houses. I believe very firmly in open houses. I immediately knew that was my calling. So
really?
Yes, absolutely. It was, I have my marketing degree from Texas State University in San Marcos. And I always kind of struggled, okay, now what do I do with this great degree that I love every part of this industry in? And now it's just, I use it every single day and I get to help clients with the biggest purchase they'll ever make.
That's amazing. And so what is it that you love about it so much?
The relationships, 100%. I am a very big believer that you can see the realtors, unfortunately, that do this for the money. And you can tell the ones that do it for the relationships, the ones who actually care about every single factor of every single transaction.
That's amazing.
And, I just had my very first client that I just mentioned that I met at an open house. They reached out to me about 2 months ago. I am now selling that house and helping them build a custom home.
Oh, that's great.
About 6 years now. So yeah. That's
great. I think that what you say really resonates with me. I've read a book recently about work and life, and it says that one of the most important things, you have to figure out what's important to you, first of all. And what this writer had figured out was that what was important to him was meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And so it sounds as though that you've been able to achieve that. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Molly, how about you?
Sure. So I am the Director of Operations at Pure Realty. We have 153 agents at our brokerage. I've been here for 7 years, moved here from the Boston area about 7 years ago, New England, and fell in love with Austin. Had never been in real estate before I started working at our brokerage, and decided ultimately not to get licensed, just to remain. I also have a degree in marketing and love that side of things, especially the digital space, and fell in love with our owners, Tim and Tammy Kress. They're amazing, amazing people. Our agents are incredible. When I started, we had 38 agents, and now to have an office of 150, is really amazing. And I'm very proud of our agents, and it's just a great place to work. Very happy to be here.
That's wonderful. That's great. Thank you guys so much for sharing a little bit about your pasts and why you've joined, and also for just being here today. Really, really appreciate it. So I wanted to talk, I think that the title of the webinar today was how agents can win bids in competitive markets. And so what I was hoping to do was start this off by sharing a little anecdote of my own. I just wrote a blog piece about this a week ago. Lisa and I are sort of fine tuning it and crafting it a little bit better. So with the hope that maybe it will get picked up. And the experience has been that, or the story is that about 2 years ago, my family and I started very superficially and casually looking around for a new house. We live in downtown, well, not downtown, the Mission District of San Francisco. So we are in the heart of San Francisco. It's expensive, it's crowded, it can tend to be dirty. And especially when COVID hit, things started to shift, and not necessarily for the better. And so about a year ago, we went from first or second gear into third gear because of COVID, thinking, okay, let's get serious about this. And then about 2 months ago, I would say 2 months ago, we put that baby into fifth gear. We really started to look. We started to house hunt every day. We were really focused in on one area, which is called, it's the city of Orinda in the East Bay, across the Bay Bridge from San Francisco. It's a bedroom community, and we fell in love with it, and that's where we have wanted to move. And what our experience so far has been one of abject frustration. We have made many offers on homes, and we have resoundingly gotten our butts kicked every single time. And what I wanted to talk about today, really, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to basically talk about the importance of the role of the agent in this process, and talk about the importance of, because I, as a buyer, I don't know the intricacies. I own a house, but I bought this house 14 years ago at the bottom of the market when there was when the housing crisis just started. So I walked into a house, I thought, this place is nice, I'd like to pay this. And they were like, sold. And that was the deal. And now we are seeing the exact opposite of that. We are seeing, I think I've read recently that the average house is receiving something like 18 offers.
Wow.
And obviously there can only be one winner. And I think in your area, Cedar Park with Pure Realty, and in Austin in general, there's like 30 offers, 40, 50, 80 offers per listing. And so I think that there are things that me as a buyer, that I as a buyer can do that I'm just not aware of. And so I've learned sort of through trial and error some of the things that I think are important, but I'd love to pick your brains on some of the things that we can be doing in order to make the buying experience actually successful. So, it has been, and I don't want to go on too long here, but I wrote in this blog piece last week that, like, I don't take things personally when I write. I try to write dispassionately. I'm just like, this is what's going on, and this is, I think, what's going to happen. And this process, and I try to apply those things to my life. Like, I try not to take things personally. And I've taken this process super freaking personally. When I get another no, I'm like, where does she live? Let's go find that person. You know what I mean? And my wife is like, simmer down. It's all going to be okay. We're going to find a place. And I'm like, but, and it's really a far more emotional experience than I actually have given it credit for. And so I really want to rely on your knowledge and expertise of things that I can do as a buyer to improve my chances, and also to sort of set expectations of what are the things that work and what are the things that don't work. So let's first talk about Austin.
Yeah.
What's going on over there in Cedar Park?
I mean, it's just craziness. I think we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in like the last couple of weeks.
It came from, so full disclosure, I am primarily a listing agent, so I can give you the perspective of receiving the offers and how my sellers are choosing particular offers and things like that. And granted, keep in mind we're in a different state. But essentially it's, with my buyers that I'm working with, it can get very interesting. I'll put it that way. Right now, the market,
Yeah.
Yes, the market itself, I just told this thing, the same statement 3 times to a few different sellers yesterday. We went from 45 offers in the area that I work with to 10 really good offers. So we went from 45 offers to about 10% of those offers that we were getting, those were considered the good ones. And now we're just getting 10 to 15 really good offers.
How did you narrow it down?
As far as sorting through the 45 offers per se, a lot does depend on agent relationships. So with any specific agent, I highly recommend every buyer's agent to at least reach out to the listing agent and touch base with them and say, look, this is who we are. Because when I get contracts, it's a packet of paper and a lot of facts to go over with my sellers, pros and cons, just dealing with the blue and black ink, basically, essentially on the contracts. But if I have a conversation with a particular buyer's agent and saying, I'm going to be sending you this contract, this is who we are, this is what's going on. You know, I'm able to send the lender contact information right now. I'll even have the lender call you personally before you present the offer. These are all little things that make a big difference and really kind of stand out when I have 45 offers and I'm saying, now you guys must pick one.
Right. So I guess my question for you, Rebekah, is if you've got 45 offers lying in front of you, do you have them actually physically on paper on a table?
Well, depending on the seller's preference, I have developed no judging.
No judging, I swear. But this is where Proppy might come in. Yeah. This is a sales call, I swear to God.
I use a wonderful system called Excel.
Paul's gonna die.
And because listen, before the craziness, my title company provides a great system that would be able to compare 7, 10, different offers. They're all very, very close within like dollars. And it was a very easy way to compare all the offers for our sellers and break them down looking at just the numbers. However, when you have 45,
yeah,
it's really hard for sellers to look through 45 different 16-page contracts.
Yep.
And then they rely on us to be able to break down. So now I just highlight the important paragraphs, the ones that get filled in, and then break it down from there.
So this is not a plug for my own company. Proppy can solve your problem for sure. We'll talk about that another time.
Molly, what are the sellers? And I have been on the opposite situation with Paul. As we were working on this article, I was telling him about my parents just sold their family home several months ago and had 16 offers, half of which were really solid, amazing offers, 20% over asking, waived contingencies, 15-day closes, almost identical. Right. So what are some of the things that buyers can do to help them kind of rise above the rest of the pack when you have 10 really good offers?
Yeah. And Lisa,
in addition to calling, you and forming a relationship.
Yeah, you've stepped right into my next questions. I have like a list of 6 of them that I want to
sorry.
go over. No, not at all. Not at all. So maybe on a general scale, Rebekah and Molly, you can actually address that. Like, first of all, please understand, I'm asking, and Lisa's asking from a position of an expert, like who knows the real estate industry. I am asking from a position of just, I see house, I want house. And that's about as sophisticated as I am. Like, offer more money, but there have to be other things that go into this, as Lisa just mentioned. And this is the first one that was on the list of things. How important is waiving contingencies?
Very, 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 very important. So from a seller's perspective, because I understand the position that you're in as far as a buyer's perspective, but the person who's choosing the offers is the seller. And from a seller's position and a listing agent, I can say that a lot comes down to risk, associated risk within the contract. So how quickly am I going to get to closing? And am I going to get to closing? Because we have seen quite a few properties pop back on the market recently. Within the last, I would say 30 days, we've seen an increase of properties that went under contract and then they fell out of contract and came back on the market. Now, pre all of this craziness, that was a normal part of the conversation I would have with my sellers. Now, this is how we prepare in the event that something like this happens. No one likes to deliver that type of phone call to a seller. However, right now, it's more critical than anything for buyers, when I do help my buyers who are submitting offers in this extremely competitive market, that we take all the risk out of the seller. As if we can present little to no risk as much as possible, which is removing contingencies.
Yeah, that's great. Would you say then that if the buyer insists upon contingencies, they're not going to get the house?
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's so many other areas of the contract, depending on, of course, again, what state you're in. And I think there's several areas of opportunity to get a contract, no matter what your offer consists of. But if no one calls me, say the listing agent, because I have, with my sellers, they're selling, so which means they're going to buy something after we sell their home. So we're going to be in that same exact flip role essentially. And I'm going to call again the listing agent and say, listen, we're going to have a contingent offer right now. Contingencies on selling a house are almost unheard of.
They don't exist, you're saying. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if I call the listing agent and I explain where we are in the process and how fast our house is going to be going, just as fast as the sellers of where my client is going, it's all about trying to create that win-win, that balance for every single party in the contract. Even though I'm only representing one side, it has to be that balanced win for all parties. A lot really does come down to agent communication.
Right. Yeah, and I think what a seller wants is going to vary wildly between each seller. And so it might be crazy important that they have a really long lease back. And that, it might not really come down to an extra $3,000 or something. But if this buyer in particular, but you won't know that, the agent won't know that unless they call and ask. And I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In particular, I did have one specific listing that literally had 45 offers on it. It was wild. I want to say maybe 10 agents called me.
Yeah.
Others, they just submitted their offer. I have no idea who they are, who their client is, what their potential is. Do they have, do all these clients have offers on all these other homes at the simultaneous time? Again, it's not to say that none of those offers, got chosen, but it helps.
Right.
It helps.
Okay. That's super important for me to know. Because again, this is really the first time that I've entered into, as a buyer, a competitive market. And I just haven't known what to expect or how to play the game, really is what it comes down to. So how about, so the next one, so that's awesome on waiving contingencies. Thank you for that. Paying all cash. How much of an effect does that have? And is it a situation where a seller says, if you're giving me all cash and waiving contingencies, it's yours?
So I hate to be super cliche, but cash is king.
Yeah.
And it comes with no lender, and it comes with there's 4 less pages involved, and so much more, like less risk, so again, it comes down to risk involved. And I recently sold my own house. We had multiple offers. We had, I think about 14 or 15 offers. We chose a cash buyer. They weren't the highest. We chose a cash buyer.
That's interesting.
They weren't the highest, but it was going to get me to where my future was going in 12 days versus 30.
Okay, so that's really the question. I mean, obviously, right? Like if you have cash, cash is king. But I've also wondered if I'm waiving contingencies, which means I'm waiving the loan contingency. And if I'm offering $20,000 more or $10,000 more than the all cash offer, why would a seller say that I'm willing to sacrifice those 15 days or 20 days on the higher offer? I will allow that a longer close because I'm going to be making more money, $20,000 in over a 30-day waiting period. So are you finding that generally speaking, sellers would prefer to take 10 grand less or 20 grand less to get all cash? Is it sort of bird in the hand's worth two in the bush?
So keep in mind the seller's countering ability. Just because the original offer is with a cash deal and a finance deal comes into play, does it mean that the sellers aren't going back to the cash deal and having them match everything about your offer?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there's that, isn't it? So it's tough. Yeah.
It is. It really is. Honestly, it really is tough. But I have had specific instances and examples, like I've had buyer's agents call me on specific listings, flat out ask, what is it going to take? What is it going to take? Like, I just want to be upfront and honest with my client. Is this amount going to be acceptable by the seller? And I'm like, I'm not the seller, so I don't know. Submit your offer. I have no idea. But on the other hand, when I get asked that question, I'm of course going to do my due diligence to my client and call my client and say, is there a number that you would take and feel comfortable with me presenting to be completely done before the multiple offer deadline, before everything else comes into play? Is there something that this will get it done? Let's sign right now.
Got it.
I had that answered one time.
Right.
And that buyer who was financing got chosen.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. And Molly, you just mentioned this, or let me stop for a second. Lisa, anything to add to that, or any comments or questions about anything?
No, I think it's just, you have to be upfront. You have to communicate with the agents. I think, Molly, I think you both just touched on how important communication is in the process, because you have to make your client human. You know, as opposed to just a stack of paper, your client has to be perceived by the sellers as a human being. So anything you can do to present the human and the family and the real life person will help set you apart from the rest of the pack. Even letting them know that you've submitted, what are you on? 15 offers?
A lot.
I mean, you know, that is something that will resonate with the seller, because they'll feel sorry for you. You know, they know what a crazy market is. So I so agree with what you were saying, Molly, but it's really to make that person human and put a face to the stack of paper.
Okay, so that brings up the next thing then, which I want to ask about, because I've heard this before and I'm like, there's no way that that's going to have an effect. But people are saying, yeah, it will. Writing a letter to the seller.
Yeah.
First of all,
She says no.
First of all, why are you laughing?
I knew that's what you were gonna say. I have done that on both homes that I bought, and I got each house, but it wasn't the way it was, you know.
Maybe you're a good writer.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm like, what do I write? Like, I am a nice guy. I really like houses. I mean, what am I supposed to say?
Okay, so full disclosure, I am a letter lover, okay? I love the letters. I love the stories. I love all of that. And before about, I want to say, up until about 6 months, yeah, there true because it's
That's
not
correct.
recommended.
Well,
That's true.
Is that true? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a
It's
buyer. I'm not an agent. I don't know.
up to six, I want to say about 6 months ago, I was recommending to all of my clients, write a letter, write a story. No pictures,
Yeah.
no facts or anything.
Anti-discrimination stuff. Is that
Fair
what?
housing, right? Like
okay,
Glenn
got
said.
it.
Yep.
And, and tell your story. Things about the house. If you're struggling with a story, let me start over. Since it's today's market, I would highly recommend your agent asking the listing agent if the seller is accepting letters.
I see.
Very 3 important steps. Have your agent call their agent, ask the seller.
Yeah.
Because some sellers, again, everything is the seller's decision. Some sellers don't want that. They don't want to be persuaded by the personal side and be fallen for the emotional versus the rational.
Okay, got it.
offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super helpful to me.
If you get the approval and they're like, yes, no problem. I just had a seller say, good to go, send me letters just this past week.
Oh.
After I explained everything to them, and they said, that's fine. I'm still okay with looking at letters. And I said, okay.
Okay. That's great. So it's been not from my own agent. He hasn't recommended writing a letter. What I have heard through the grapevine, I've done research online that's like, oh, people write letters? Wow. I've never written one and I wouldn't even know what to say. But so I get it now. That makes sense. Again, you can see like, this is my first real foray into the market as a buyer and learning what is appropriate and what's not. So that totally makes sense. Can we talk for just a few minutes about what you had mentioned, Molly, the leaseback? So explain how that works. I had just heard it like a week ago for the very first time as an option. I assume that it's on the up and up. And so it would be great to understand like how important it is and what it is, and then how much influence it can have.
I think Rebekah would be better at explaining that. What I know is that can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be ideal to somebody who will then need to move somewhere else and need some time to find a home. But Rebekah is probably a licensed individual, should be probably the one to explain that.
So, okay, with leasebacks, again, and I'm trying not to keep sounding like a broken record, but pre all this craziness, leasebacks were
Kind of rare.
here and there, a few days overlap, things like that. But remember, with sellers now, they have to find somewhere else to go.
Right.
And given the market is not so friendly towards sellers who need to sell their home, a longer leaseback after they close their home, have all their net proceeds, don't have to move twice, is favorable.
Really attractive part of the deal.
But the only way you know that is if your agent calls the seller's agent and says, listen, we're super flexible on our closing date. We can do leasebacks. I mean, that is the only way you as the buyer, just like knowing how to submit your offer. I'm assuming every buyer's agent should be diving in so deep into figuring out what the actual market is giving, in a particular market. I know, again, when I work with my buyers, if they come to me with an extremely unrealistic number, we're just not meant to be buyers at this point.
Got it.
So, I mean, this is what's happening in the market, and we need to be able to meet these, standards or recommendations. If we can't, then maybe it's just not our time. But with leasebacks, again, back to the original question, because I tell stories a lot. I tell stories.
Great. I love it.
But with leasebacks, honestly, I was just able to get one of my clients, one of my sellers, a 9-month essential leaseback.
Wow.
Yes, because that's what they needed. And so we marketed their property based on what they needed. So the only buyers that really submitted an offer was capable of giving us that.
That's wonderful. Okay, so that could be a really nice thing to offer in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If it's important to the sellers,
Yeah.
if it's important to the sellers.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the real key is to find out what the situation is.
What they need. Yep.
The sellers and what they need. And then you have to craft an offer that's competitive based on their needs.
Right.
If they don't need a lease back, that's not going to do anything
don't
to
offer
help
it.
you. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so last question. And this might sound obvious, but it hasn't been to me, right? I've walked into this whole process with ignorance. Because again, I haven't known, I've just thought I will just use an agent. And my agent happens to be a dear friend of mine who doesn't live in that area that where we want to buy.
Okay.
I've known him forever. And he's like, hey, I'd be happy to just help you out. And I'm like, sorry about that. I'm like, sure, that would be great. Not knowing how his lack of knowledge about the area and the network in the area would impact it. So talk to me about the importance of local knowledge.
Gosh. One, it's extremely ethical for agents to only work the areas that they have area competence in.
Yep.
So I'm going.
That's a big trek thing for us.
Very,
in
very,
Texas
it's
real estate.
extremely important.
Yep.
It's very, very important. So just because I can access any door from Waco to San Antonio
Doesn't mean you do.
doesn't mean I do that.
Yes. Right.
Is that a big like Cummings team thing and a big pure realty thing? Like we're staying local and we're helping local people.
Yeah, I mean, in Texas, the rule is you can do business wherever your broker is a member of that board, but that doesn't mean that our broker allows every agent to just do business wherever she is a member, because you owe it to your clients
Absolutely.
to know the area in and out and understand the market and have experience in that market, either living there and before you got licensed or growing up there. Like Rebekah does some work in San Antonio, but she was born and raised in San Antonio, or raised in San Antonio, raised in San Antonio, so she knows the area very well. So that's something that would be allowed here at our office. But I agree. Somebody in the chat said he should refer you, and
Yes.
I agree with that. He should probably refer you to a local agent who knows that market like the back of his hand, who has ties to other offices that have information about listings that are coming on the market earlier than, I mean, it's just, that the right thing to do would be for him to refer you and make sure that you were, set with a local agent that knows the area very well.
So it really is a huge part of having the right agent is like a huge part of all of this.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Very, very much so. Because I work with my own, buyers as well.
Right.
I am doing them disjustice if I don't know how to walk them through a winning offer. I mean, and what is it if I don't know it because I don't know the area and I don't know what's actually happening? How are my clients going to win?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I thought that I was doing him a favor because I've known him for such a long time. And the first offer that we made, he was like, no, don't. So the property was gorgeous. It was right where we wanted to be. And the house was 70 years old. And so the seller's agent called and said, would you be willing to waive the contingencies? And this house was 70 years old. And we said, I talked to the agent. He was like, don't, because it's a 70-year-old house. And poof, we lost it in 20 minutes. So I think that had we known and used somebody local, we probably would have made a different decision. But live and learn, and we move on. So this has been incredibly helpful for me to just understand from a buyer's perspective what goes on and the value of working with a company like Pure. So I think that really is it. That concludes our time together. And I've really appreciated this. And I promise you, Rebekah, we're going to send you a bottle of wine. I don't know.
Merlot. I like Merlot.
A Napa Merlot is on its way. We'll send it to your office, okay? It'll be a nice Napa wine too.
Yeah, perfect.
One for you too, Molly. Really appreciate it.
Under $25. Yeah. Gwyneth, you're funny. Yeah. I love it.
Gwyneth has also been in the room.
Oh, he's a Vespa. That's right. That's
The
true.
rest of that'd be a cheap bottle of wine there.
Yeah, under $25. There are tons of them. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. Really have appreciated the time. Lisa, thank you so much for joining in and giving your
Thanks for
expertise on
having me.
everything. And we will look forward to doing it again.
Thank you. Thanks for
Have a
having
good day, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.